Hello again everyone, and welcome back to Skyblock News. I'm your host Derailious, and today I'm going to be talking about some pretty important changes to the Ditto Blob, some admin philosophy, and on top of that we're going to be talking about some community frustrations with the most recent events. Before we get into this, I just want to say, we are getting very close to 70k, so if you could leave a like and subscribe down below, that really would mean a ton. Also make sure to use code RAIL in the Hypixel store for 5% off your order. Thank you so much, and let's get into the video. Starting off today, we have a pretty bad situation when it comes to the Ditto Blob. The admins decided yesterday to make the Ditto Blob skin and skull all unsoulbound. This allowed you to trade them and also put them on the auction house. And people responded by doing exactly what I imagined they would, by making the worst possible things imaginable and putting them on the auction house for everybody to see. This is obviously not okay in any way, shape, or form, and the admins responded by first soulbinding the items again, and then making it so they couldn't be tradable on the auction house. I think that is a good fix. Now they are currently unsoulbound, but you can't put them on the auction house. But it really is embarrassing for the community to have to deal with stuff like this, and it's awful that people decided to use this, thing that the admins put in the game for potential benefit or allow people to trade cool items, and just immediately use it in the most scummy way possible. So it is a sad situation, but I'm glad it was resolved pretty quickly. Next up, I want to briefly talk about the patch notes that the admins put out yesterday after my last video. While I won't go over pretty much everything here, I will talk about this one section focusing on designer notes. Basically, the admins go over their reasons behind the dye's update, and specifically talk about Brick Red dye, which was a 1 in 2 million drop from killing redstone pigmen. They basically state that that didn't really work out for them because players didn't want to farm redstone pigmen late in the game. It wasn't content relevant, and so they decided to change it out because they wanted to make sure that every single dye was found through relevant sources. This makes a lot of sense to me, and honestly it's nice to see the admins just talk about their design philosophies pretty much at all. The reason I'm bringing this up is because at the end of this part of the thread, they did say that they wanted feedback on whether or not we liked this sort of thing, so make sure you comment down below if you did, and also go over to the forum post, which I will have linked, and comment on there as well. Next up, I want to briefly talk about the response to the Mining Fiesta event. There has been quite a bit of negativity going around, the most notable of which is because the event was interrupted yesterday during the actual update. The admins decided to reset the servers during this time, and that caused people to lose out on quite a bit of the second event. Now, I personally wasn't too affected by this, but I completely understand the frustrations. You don't know when the next Mining Fiesta is going to be. They're not on a set timer. At least after this mayor is over, it could be months before we see it again. And people wanted to get the items now. They don't want to have to wait months and months, especially if you're on an Iron Man profile. So it would be prudent if the admins decided to make these events either A, last longer, or B, make them not happen during a server update, maybe by moving the event over by an hour or two, or by just rescheduling the update. I feel like eventually a solution needs to be reached here, because there is a lot of animosity because of issues like this, and I do partially understand it. The admins do want to make the game as playable as possible for the largest group of people as possible, but when you do stuff like this, it kind of erodes trust a little bit. Even if some people, like myself, weren't affected, I truly do feel for those who were. Next up, we have a pretty weird change on the patch notes that was reverted. This states, non-base stats on a pet are no longer reflected directly on the pet. Stats granted from pet perks and from pet items. This change is so that these stats are not implied to be affected by the Chimera Ultimate Enchant and Minos Relic pet item. The problem is, that's just completely flat out wrong. The Minos Relic pet item and the Chimera Enchant do take into account upgrades to pets that are not related to their base stats. I mean, look at the G-Drag, for example. If I head over to it, you can see it gets bonus magic find from something like Shining Scales. It's the whole reason anyone goes for Max Gold Collection. When you combine it with something like Chimera, it's insanely powerful. But the admins are just implying that this isn't the functionality. They ended up reverting this and stated that no changes were intended to functionality, but this makes me think that they were either A, planning a Chimera nerf that didn't actually go through, or B, literally forgot that this was the functionality of pets like the golden dragon. I don't know which one is true. In my opinion, I think it's more likely that they were planning some sort of Chimera Nerf, but it seems like that was eventually staved off, and it has not gone through. Overall, despite the pretty good reception of the Dies update in terms of content, there have been more than a few issues with its release, and also the following day. I do imagine that the admins are working pretty hard on trying to get things back to a pretty nice medium, but for now things are a little messy, and that's just how it is sometimes. At the end of the day though, my name is Derailious, thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and look to the future fellas, I'll see you then.